Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Stefan Grobe. My guest today has been described as conservative, both socially and economically, with an excellent grasp of economics and a strong attention to detail. Something that served him well when he was Irish Minister for Finance and Minister for Public Expenditure, and now as EU Commissioner for Democracy, Justice, the Rule of Law and Consumer Protection. Michael McGrath, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Stefan. Pleasure to be here with you.
So when I was researching your approach to politics, I found this quote of yours, and it goes like this: everyone should have the opportunity to progress irrespective of their background. There should be a safety net for everyone who needs it. Now, to me, that doesn't sound like a conservative politician. That sounds like Obama.
Well, I'm not sure about these labels anymore, but I'm happy to talk about myself and my views and my journey. And I think that quote reflects where I came from. I came from a very normal, humble, working class background in Cork, in Ireland, and had the great opportunity through education to progress and to follow my own dreams, which ultimately led me into national politics and now European politics. So the point I was making there was that every person deserves to have that opportunity to progress and to create a better future for themselves and their families, and that is what good societies and good economies can create, is that opportunity for progression, and it has to be coupled with the safety net that I referred to there, because there will be times in people's lives and there will be people in circumstances where support is needed, and I think in Europe we have a very strong social market economy, and I think that in many ways is our USP.
You started your political career when you were in your early 20s as a local council member. Now, that vast experience in Irish politics, what did it teach you to tackle the issues here in Brussels?
It taught me the importance of staying connected to people that you represent, which in electoral politics, that is your role. It's a representational role. In Irish politics in particular, elected representatives are very close to the people that they represent and are really anchored in their local communities. And if you don't continue with that work, even as a member of parliament and even as a government minister, you will not be re-elected. For me, I started at the age of 22 in my local town, where the population was about 5,000 people, ran in my first election and served at the most local level of democracy, and then moved up through the different levels. So it taught me the importance of listening to people, trying to understand where people were coming from on different issues, and doing your best to represent them, and also to provide leadership.
Is Irish politics a body sport?
It's tough, but I think politics everywhere is tough now, and I think it has changed through the currency of social media as well. That's certainly the big shift that I experienced and I saw from the time that I came into politics to the time that I left Irish politics to become a European Commissioner. It is 24/7, but the scrutiny and indeed the abuse and the online commentary, can be difficult for some people to grapple with, and I think we do have to think about safety in politics in the broadest. We will bring forward a European Commission recommendation on safety in politics, but for me it's crucial that we remove barriers to entry and that people who have something to offer and who are willing to become involved in public life take on that challenge. It's crucial that they do, and that we have a new generation of people coming through.
You are the EU's Commissioner for Democracy and Rule of Law. But across Europe, trust in democratic institutions is falling. Where do you think has the EU failed its citizens? Why is that the case?
Well, I think it's a complex story, and we have 27 member states, and you will find different levels of satisfaction and indeed trust across the European Union. I think it's important that politics delivers for people. If people feel that there is a disconnect between them and their aspirations and their concerns with what is being conducted in politics, then inevitably their level of trust and their level of support will diminish. So it's important that everybody in politics, including governments, including those serving at a local level and a regional level, and those of us who are privileged to serve at a European level, that we work for people and that we always think about, you know, what is the North Star? The North Star is what is in the interests of the people that we are there to serve. And I think if we have that as our guidance, then we won't go far wrong.
Now, there are a lot of Europeans who believe that the EU is being too bureaucratic, too moralizing, disconnected from everyday concerns. How serious is this problem for you, for the European Union?
You know, when I sit back and think about it, I genuinely believe that the EU is the best place in the world to live and to work and to have a family and to grow old. When you think about our values, what we stand for, the fact that we do have that social market economy where we have a high level of spend, quite rightly, on social protection and social security supports. And when you think about what the EU has helped us all to achieve. First of all, you know, peace on our continent. We have this brutal war of aggression now by Russia in Ukraine for the last 4.5 years. But in broad terms, if you look at the journey since World War II, the EU has been probably the most successful peace project in the world. The right
Why
to
is it
travel,
then that
to study.
right-wing populism is gaining ground? The Eurosceptics, the anti-Europeans, their power is gaining ground in Europe. Why is that the case? If you say the EU is the best place.
Well, look, people will vote for whomever they choose, and often for very different reasons. But I think we have a strong case to make that the European Union has, without question, improved the quality of life of EU citizens, has created economic opportunity, integration has undoubtedly helped all of us. That right to travel, to work, to study anywhere in the European Union is fundamental. And if we cast our minds back and we think what life was like and would be like again if the European Union did not exist, and in my mind it would be a much poorer place, and it would be a place where the quality of life would be greatly, greatly diminished. So I think, look, we have to look at what works well, but also acknowledge perhaps our failings and acknowledge where we need to do better. This new Commission is in office for the last 18 months, and we are very focused on trying to ease that burden of regulation, make life a little bit simpler for citizens, for businesses. So tap into all that is good about the European Union, the single market of 450 million people and all of those rights that I spoke about, but also acknowledging that there have been times when the EU has overdone it on the question of regulation and red tape. And there is a need now to try to wind some of that back. Okay. And that's what we are trying to do.
One of your core responsibilities is rule of law.
Yeah.
And in the past, the country that created the biggest headaches for the Commission was Hungary. Now, Hungary has a new government, a new leadership. How long will it take for the new government in Hungary to undo all the legal manipulations by the old government under Orban, so that the frozen funds can be unfrozen?
Well, there will be challenges for sure, and there will be complexity, and it's not possible to do everything overnight. From our point of view in the European Commission, what is important is that we see a sustained commitment to rule of law and to introducing the necessary reforms in Hungary, and indeed on doing some of what was done in recent years. And in the European Commission, they will find a willing partner and a supportive partner. That's why I'll visit Budapest next week to meet with my direct counterpart, the Minister for Justice. It's why the Hungarian Prime Minister is meeting President von der Leyen again tomorrow. So the contact is ongoing and is intensive. Good progress is being made, and we will support Hungary on their path to restoring rule of law in the interest of their citizens. It's not that they need to do this for the EU. They need to do this for themselves and for the Hungarian people, so that they can enjoy the rights and benefits and freedoms and privileges that European Union membership confers on people. I think about the Hungarian students, many of whom have been denied access to Erasmus, not because of the EU, but because of what the previous Hungarian government did. So the sooner we can fix these things, the better, and that the life experience of ordinary Hungarian citizens is improved. And that is what this is all about.
The new Prime Minister, Peter Magyar, has called on several top office holders from the Orban era to resign, including the current president. And he threatened that he will change the constitution if they don't do it. Is that legitimate?
You know, it is inevitable when you have such a seismic change in the political landscape of a country that there will be issues and there will be changes in personnel. I think that is normal in such a scenario. What is important is that due process is always followed and that the rights of every individual citizen, including those serving in public office, are respected. So that is all part of having a good rule of law environment, is that you have checks and balances, that you have supports in place, that you have recourse to appeals mechanisms, you have recourse to independent courts in the justice system, for example. So all of these things are important. So there will be churn and there will be change in personnel. It's inevitable when you have such a significant shift in the political landscape, but it's important also that that is done in a way that respects the rights of individuals.
Are you monitoring the situation?
Of course we are. We are monitoring the situation in every member state of the European Union, and my team are now working intensively on the next round of rule of law country chapters, which we will publish in July of this year, where we look at every single country in the EU under a number of headings.
There's also this new legislative initiative in Hungary to amend the constitution so that a prime minister can only serve for 2 terms, which would make it impossible for Viktor Orban ever to occupy that post again. Any comments on this?
That's a matter for the national authorities and for the government in any member state to decide on matters such as that. When it comes to electoral politics and electoral matters and the conduct of elections, it's a national competence, and we respect the competence of the member states to make decisions of that nature.
Good. You mentioned electoral politics. We've seen interference and fake news propaganda online ahead of elections in Europe. Should social media platforms be legally liable when disinformation campaigns threaten elections in Europe?
Well, they already have clear obligations under the Digital Services Act, including in relation to the integrity of electoral processes and the impact that content disseminated on the platform may have on those electoral processes. It may sound quite technical, but they are required to mitigate the systemic risk. And so our colleagues in DG Connect and the European Commission, led by the Executive Vice President Henry Verkunnen, are doing a lot of work in this space, and there are actions underway under the DSA to make sure that those obligations are upheld. And fundamentally, Stefan, what we want to see in the European Union is a situation where every citizen gets to exercise their democratic franchise at the ballot box in free and fair elections, and that they get the representatives that they choose. And that is what our goal is within the European Union.
Now, with artificial intelligence, disinformation is becoming more sophisticated. Is Europe ready or prepared for this wave of digital manipulation?
I think the whole world is grappling with this issue and struggling to keep pace. I think in the EU we are better positioned than most because we do have a mature regulatory rule book, not just the DSA, but now the AI Act as well, and we've made some targeted amendments to the AI Act. So it will involve, for example, the requirement to label AI-generated deepfakes because we know the impact that they could have if they are released in the days leading up to an election. And the quality is getting better and better, let's be honest. It can be increasingly difficult for all of us, I think, to distinguish between what's real now and what's AI generated. So again, we do have the regulatory rule book, but enforcement is what matters. And ultimately, this is about empowering the citizens so that they can make that free decision that I spoke about earlier on without undue interference.
You mentioned, you said enforcement is key here. Now, you met with Sam Altman and some other US AI corporate leaders. Do they understand where we're coming from? Do they understand European regulation and why it is in place?
I think they
Sometimes
do.
I feel that we're talking on two different levels here.
No, I think they do. If you put aside the rhetoric that we hear from time to time, I think US big tech recognise that the European Union is a fantastic market for them to be operating in. For many of them, it is their single biggest and most lucrative market in the world. And I think they recognise that the EU has its own digital rule book, which, by the way, is now being examined and replicated around the world. Wherever I travel on behalf of the European Commission, I get asked about the DSA, about the AI Act, by other countries who are looking at it because they are further back on the journey and they have not introduced measures that are proportionate and balanced. Of course, we keep all of this under review, and that's why we have brought forward certain targeted amendments to the AI Act, for example. I've brought forward amendments to the GDPR. We always have to be conscious of the interplay between different instruments of EU regulation that we have. We have to make sure the law is clear, consistent, and can be enforced uniformly around the European Union. But I think the big tech firms, including the AI companies that you mentioned, recognise that there is a need for guardrails because we want AI to serve us rather than the other way around.
Right.
We want to have control as human beings about how AI is helping us to bring about positive changes in our working lives, in our personal lives, and in our wider society.
I have to ask you this. You're a family man, you're a father of 7. Do you support restricted access to social media for kids, something that has been discussed in various countries? Should the EU consider a blanket ban? Kids will probably find a way around that, right?
Yeah, well, we are considering what to do. We haven't made any decision yet. As you know, President von der Leyen set up an expert panel on child safety online. We expect that they will report back in the coming weeks, and the Commission will then make a decision on next steps. I think it is likely that there will be an EU-wide initiative in this space. I'm not saying that it will be a hard ban or anything of the sort.
How likely?
This is all to be decided.
Okay.
Well, you know, we've given the experts a job to do, so let's allow them to do their job. They'll report back, they'll make recommendations. But I think it's a very healthy thing that there is now a mature and open debate on the role of social media and the impact on children.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this issue in a wider way through the Digital Fairness Act I'll bring forward later on this year, which will involve measures to better protect children online. But on your question of social media, you know, you have a spectrum of options from the so-called hard ban that you talk about to dealing with issues like addictive design, infinite autoplay. Do we make it easier for parents to exercise oversight and control? For a lot of parents, it can be very intimidating, trying to understand how to navigate these systems, and I count myself among them. It is challenging, I think, for all of us. So we're looking at a spectrum of options, no decision made yet.
On that note, you're also in charge of consumer protection.
Yes.
Now, why do many Europeans still feel powerless against big tech platforms when it comes to scams, addictive algorithms, and misuse of personal data?
So these are among the issues that will feature in the Digital Fairness Act later on this year. Again, I would say overall that in the area of consumer protection, we have the highest standards in the world in the European Union, but we need to make sure that those protections keep pace with technological development. And the truth is that when it comes to our consumer protection laws, they have not been designed with the digital age in mind. And so when we speak about issues like dark patterns and addictive design and unfair personalisation or dynamic pricing when it comes to being on a queue to buy a concert ticket, these issues need to be examined. Subscription traps where you sign up to a free trial and it just rolls on into a permanent commitment that you find difficult to get out of. They're the very kind of issues that I and my team are now working through in the context of this Digital Fairness Act, which we'll bring forward before the end of this year.
All right, Michael McGrath, EU Commissioner for Democracy, Rule of Law,
Justice.
Consumer Protection and Justice. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Stefan. A pleasure.